Pokeball is one of the most iconic items in any video game, and Pokemon has introduced quite a lot of them, but I think we can all agree, we need more. Scarlet and Violet didn't introduce any new Pokeballs, so I've decided to make some of my own, that Game Freak is 100% allowed to steal, and I'd love to see in a future Pokemon game. Here are 30 new Pokeballs that I came up with for the Pokemon series, starting with the Sun Ball. This is essentially the opposite of the Moon Ball, a 4x catch rate on a Pokemon whose evolution line evolves with a Sunstone. It's pretty obvious how I wanted this ball to look, taking the Moon Ball and fitting it with a Sun aesthetic. The Moon Ball is already one of the coolest looking Pokeballs in the game, so a Sun Ball to me was obvious. The Shiny Ball, a 5x catch rate on Shiny Pokemon. I think a Pokeball that worked better on Shiny Pokemon was a must-do. For the look, of course I had to add some sort of sparkle effect. And the bright blue, I think, works really well along with it. The Rookie Ball, a 3x catch rate on first evolution Pokemon that are part of a 3-stage evolution line. I see this almost like a beginner ball, something that the players can use early on in the game that work great against early birds and bugs. For the look, it was pretty hard to come up with a design for this ball, but I think the paw print works perfectly. The Mature Ball, a 3x catch rate on final evolution Pokemon that are part of a 3-stage evolution line. When I thought of the Rookie Ball, I knew I wanted to do the opposite. This would be more of a late game ball that would help players catch those slightly harder to obtain Pokemon later in the game. And if you're wondering about the colours I chose for these Pokeballs, they were pretty inspired, I will say. The Wealth Ball. This ball has no effect and has the same catch rate as a regular Pokeball. However, it costs 1 million Pokédollars. I love the idea of a Pokeball that doesn't do anything. It's just really expensive. Obviously the design had to have gold in it somewhere. I also wanted the Poké-dollar symbol in it, and I think this worked out pretty well. The Champion Ball. This ball has a 0.25x catch rate on everything. However, any Pokemon that's caught in it becomes stronger, most likely by having their IVs raised. I wanted to make a Pokeball that was hard to catch any Pokemon in, but would reward the player if they managed to. For the design, I wanted something League inspired, and even though it's not the most complicated design, I like how it turned out. The Earth Ball, a 3x catch rate on grass, water, and ground type Pokemon. However, a 0.1x catch rate on poison type Pokemon. Of course for this ball I had to give it an Earth look. I also wanted the ball to be somewhat similarly designed to the Heavy Ball, so tried my best to implement it here. The Evolution Ball, a 3x catch rate on Pokemon that can evolve. Additionally, if the Pokemon is at a level where they're able to evolve, they'll evolve if captured. I wasn't 100% sure on what I wanted the ball to look like at first, but then I got some inspiration from the evolution symbol in Pokemon Go. And, given how Pokemon evolution is usually associated a lot of the time with the colour blue, I found this the most fitting colour for the Pokeball. The Standalone Ball, a 3x catch rate on Pokemon that don't evolve, and also don't have a pre-evolution. I wanted to make a Pokeball for Pokemon that were alone in their evolution line. As for design, I took the Evolution Ball and flipped the colours around a little bit. I came up with 2 versions, and either works in my opinion. The Alpha Ball, a 3.5x catch rate on big Pokemon. Big being Pokemon like Alpha Pokemon, as the name implies. I took inspiration from the Alpha symbol in Legends Arceus, wanting to make something that looked big on the Pokeball, almost like a cliff or a mountain. Not super complex, but fitting. The Brown Ball, a 10x catch rate on Bidoof. And that's it. Pretty great idea for a Pokeball if you ask me. For the design, you get the picture. The Dawn Ball. Like the Sun Ball I made, this is the opposite counterpart to the already existing Dusk Ball. Has a 3x catch rate on Pokemon if used outside, and only during the daytime. I obviously wanted to take the Dusk Ball design and recolor it. Although when doing that, I really wasn't happy with the colours I tried at first. Orange was the obvious go-to choice for Dusk, but found this colour didn't really work on the ball that well. But when messing around a bit, I found this colour to be the best looking. And the best part about this Pokeball is, my good friend Terrible Tavi decided to make an actual model of it. This just makes me want the Dawn Ball in the game even more. The Cursed Ball. This is the opposite counterpart to the Luxury and Friend Ball. It has a 2.5x catch rate, however, slows down the Pokemon's friendship level, making it much harder to become friendly with the Pokemon. I figured using some sort of bone design worked well with a cursed ball, along with dull colours. Gets the point across. The Guardian Ball. This has a 0.5 times catch rate, however, it is the only Pokeball that you can use on a fainted Pokemon. If the Pokemon faints, and you have this ball in your bag, you'll have the option to throw the Guardian Ball. I also imagine there being a toggle where you can choose whether or not the option will appear to catch the fainted Pokemon, since it would be pretty annoying having to say no every time you faint a Pokemon. I always thought it would be cool to have some way of catching a Pokemon that you faint, so here's a Pokeball specifically for that. I figured Angel Wings on the design worked well, with the ring around the Pokeball acting like a halo. Definitely one of my favourite ideas for a Pokeball, even if it is somewhat unrealistic. The Bullet Ball. This is a kind of opposite ball to the fast ball. The slower the Pokemon is, the easier they are to catch. You're less likely to hit a moving target, so wanted to make a ball for that. The design is pretty iconic. I didn't want to make it look like an actual bullet, but a baseball-like design I thought worked pretty well. The Lake Ball. A 3 times catch rate on Pokemon that are in any of the water egg groups. This is indeed the same Pokeball that appeared in the anime. However, it wasn't made clear if the ball had some sort of effect. We already have some Pokeballs that are great for catching water types, but luckily the water egg groups include some non-water type Pokemon, making the ball's effect a bit more unique to other water type catching balls. I like this Pokeball design so much, so wanted to add it to the video. Weather Ball. Yes, I know this is a Pokemon move, so it would probably be called something else, but keeping it Weather Ball for now. Has a 3.5 times catch rate in weather. It was pretty difficult coming up with the design of this ball, as I wanted it to represent all the weathers in one, but after some beta designs and some friend suggestions, I managed to come up with this. The colours represent the weathers, rain, snow, sand, fog, and the middle obviously representing the sun. The Stat Ball. The catch rate of this ball is determined by how much the Pokemon stats have been lowered, instead of their health. This also means that the higher the Pokemon stats are, the harder it is for the ball to catch. This makes it a much more unique way of catching a Pokemon. Since red and blue are colours mainly used for stat increases and decreases, I figured it would work perfectly with this Pokeball. The Legend Ball. A 4 times catch rate on legendary Pokemon, 0.1 times on anything else. I wanted to give the legendaries their own version of the Beast Ball. Obviously the ball had to look really cool, so I experimented with some colours. I haven't really seen a ball using black and white for both sides, so I wanted to try it out here. I do think all of these designs I came up with though work really well. The Ignition Ball. This is probably my favourite Pokeball idea I've come up with, and the Pokeball I'd love to see in a Pokemon game the most. This has a 4.5 times catch rate, however if the Pokemon breaks out, the ball explodes and the Pokemon faints. So, a very risky Pokeball to use. The design for this ball at first looked like this. I was told it should look somewhat like an electrode, but I didn't think it suited the ball that well. I knew I wanted there to be an exclamation mark somewhere on the ball, almost like a warning sign, and this is the design I ended up with. Like I said, really love the idea for this ball and would be more than happy to see it in the game. The Random Ball. This ball, like the name says, has a random catch modifier, anywhere between 0.1 and 5 times. This is a pretty bizarre idea for a Pokeball, but hey, having a Pokeball that was completely RNG based, given how Pokemon is, I thought it was appropriate. I wanted a somewhat wacky design for this Pokeball, nothing too crazy, so I ended up with something like this. The Reverse Ball. This ball has a higher chance to catch the Pokemon the more health the Pokemon has, instead of being easier to catch the lower the Pokemon's health is. It starts at a 3 times catch rate, but then goes down to 0.5. The strategy for this ball would be to give the Pokemon a status condition while still at full health. The look for this ball was obvious. Take the regular Pokeball and invert the colours. Looks pretty cool, I will say. The Emergency Ball. This Pokeball has a 7 times catch rate, but only if it's the last Pokeball that you have. Considering it's rather unlikely for players to not have any Pokeballs on them, this ball's effect may not see much play at all, but I still really like the effect of this ball. As I said, it's called the Emergency Ball, for emergencies only. I used an emergency-like symbol on the ball, and think it works pretty well. The Gam Ball. A 3 times catch rate, however, raises one of the Pokemon stats if they break out. Now, given Game Freak's history with gambling in Pokemon, I doubt there's any chance of this ball ever existing, but I still really like the idea of the ball. It's also one of my favourite designs I've come up with. Unrealistic, sure, but still cool nonetheless. The Synchronize Ball, a 3x catch rate if the Pokemon that you have out is also in a Synchronized Ball, making both your Pokemon and the Pokemon you're trying to catch synchronized. As for the ball's design, I originally went with this, but realised the symbol on the ball was just one flip away from being an S, so it works well in my opinion. The Retro Ball. The older the generation the Pokemon is from, the higher the catch rate is. It's a ball that entices players to want to catch older generation Pokemon still. The design I went with is something inspired by the original Game Boy look. Pretty happy with how it turned out. The Dex Ball. This has a 2.5x catch rate on a Pokemon that you don't have registered in the Pokédex yet. I wanted to make a ball that was basically the opposite of the Repeat Ball, a Pokeball that would help players fill up their Pokédex easier. The ball is obviously inspired by the Pokédex. Pretty cool design if you ask me. The Union Ball. This is specifically a ball designed for multiplayer. The catch rate of this ball is increased depending on how many people are in your lobby, so the more friends you're playing with, the higher the catch rate. This was partially inspired by the multiplayer mode in Scarlet and Violet, and how you can catch Pokemon in your friends' games, including version exclusives. And making the catch rate better, the more people in the lobby, gives more of a reason for players to have more people in their group. Originally the design of the ball looked like this, but I found it looked a little bit too similar to the Dive Ball, so opted for something like this. I took the colours of multiplayer options used in Pokemon games into one ball. I think it works pretty well. The Terrain Ball. A 3x catch rate when a terrain is up. This gives players more incentive to use terrains against wild Pokemon when wanting to catch them. Additionally, I thought it would be a cool idea for the Terrain Ball to change colour depending on what terrain you caught the Pokemon in. Haven't really seen Pokeballs that change colour upon catching, so thought this would be a pretty cool idea. The Tarot Ball. This ball idea was by the wonderful little Shelder. A 3x catch rate on Ghost, Psychic and Dark type Pokemon. So taking a Tarot card and putting it onto a Pokeball. I knew I wanted some sort of constellation-like pattern on the ball, and the colours to be bright gold along with dark purple worked perfectly. If Game Freak made this ball real, I would be very satisfied. And those are 30 custom Pokeballs that I'd love to see in future Pokemon games. Let me know in the comments which Pokeball you like the most, or any Pokeballs that you'd like to see in future Pokemon games. And if you did enjoy, please do leave a like, as it does help the video out. Subscribe for more Pokemon content in the future, and until next time, thank you so much for watching.